to the International Mentoring Community, all things mentoring lounge, where we dialogue about mentor, mentee, mentorship, mentoring, anything that we can come up with that lands in the area of mentoring. And we add to that the world of certification, how to certify as a mentor. I'm Dr. Stephen Hobbs. I'm one of the co-founders, and Doug Lawrence is joining us. As our tradition, I'm just going to share a little bit about what we're going to go through on today's broadcast. We have called this the notion of mentoring comments, challenges, courses, conferences, and completion. And what we're going to do is have a conversation with you about what's upcoming through August, September, and October, and to give you a bit of a heads up about what it is that we're wanting to get organized, share with you about what's taking place. And therefore, we have something about comments. We're actually doing a little research and asking you to get involved with us, and we'll give you a link to that. Then we're going to take a look at a 7 or 14-day challenge. Again, we're going to ask, what do you think would work best? We're going to work off of a 7 days, but you might say, hey, listen, I think a 14-day challenge would be better. Great. Love to hear from you. Go over a course that connects with the challenge, which extends the challenge into about 3 months, which includes certification at the achievement level. And we'll go over what that means. Then people are asking us about conferences, and we thought, well, maybe we will do a conference of our own. And I know we've got 3 topics, and ask you if you have any others. And just acknowledge that there are conferences going on around the world. And then what we're going to do is look at completion, because what we do here at the International Mentoring Community is ask that you get involved in the certification process at recognition, achievement, and competence. And we just want to briefly go over what that looks like. So that's where we're going today. So you could consider it more of a practical presentation than it is about giving you new insights, doing a concept review, something like that. You can always tell that because I'm wearing my writing hoodie because I've been writing and reading all morning. And here we are at the Mentoring Lounge. And so, Doug, why don't you introduce yourself and what your role is in IMC so people who don't know us can get to meet us.
So I'm in my coming from the dentist attire, so I just thought I would share that. So my name is Doug Lawrence, and I am the president of Talent Seed, which is my own company. I'm also co-founder of the International Mentoring Community, and the role that I play, or the function that I perform, is that of the Director of Practice and Outreach.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Hobbs. I'm Director of Education and Certification. I also have my own company, Wealth Movement, which is about educating, especially in the nature-informed world. If you're an edupreneur and nature-informed, that's what I get involved with. Doug has more of a workplace, organization, culture, and certainly a mental health component to what he does. So you can certainly tap into who we are, whether it's at the IMC or individual businesses, and we'd be happy to help you understand the world of mentoring. What we often say is the metaphors and methods of mentoring. So join us and learn how to bring that into your business, or just into your own volunteer practice, or just for continuous learning about something that's of value for the world, with the planet, and from the whole. So Doug, I think we're going to jump into it. I think what would be helpful is if you can give us our definition of mentoring from an IMC perspective, then we can use that to unpack what we want to share today.
I sure can. So the definition of mentoring is a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and mentee are going to learn and develop on a personal and professional basis.
Do you want to unpack that a little bit, just so people understand why we've got certain words in there, like trusted and professional?
So the trusted relationship part is that in order for you to be successful in developing and maintaining a relationship, mentoring relationship, it needs to be one that's premised on trust. And there are a number of things that you need to do in order to be able to develop that trust. The other part is that's of extreme importance is the personal and professional growth. So what we need to do as mentors is we need to really spend some time targeting or focusing on the personal growth of an individual, especially in light of the mental health issues that we're dealing with today, the silent pandemic that I refer to, which is mental health and mental well-being. So those are, certainly some things. And for our listeners' benefit, the definition is shaped the way it is because both it helps us get away from the reverse mentoring concept that sometimes people talk about, and the idea behind this being a two-way trusted relationship. I know going into a mentoring session that I'm going to learn something from my mentee. I'm also going to learn something about myself. And so that's why the definition is structured the way it is.
Great. And this notion of the reverse mentoring, we sort of call it a bit more of a myth because let's not go down that road of reverse because, Doug?
Well, if you look at the definition of reverse, it's going backwards. And I'm sorry, but any mentoring relationship I get involved in, we're not going backwards.
There you go. That's why we sort of call it a bit of a myth. We're not going to go out on the limb and say get rid of reverse mentoring because I know it's sort of embedded in some people's minds, but at the same time, we're encouraging people to get that word disconnected from mentoring so that we can actually get into what Doug just shared with us about our definition of mentoring. So with that, the first area that we want to have a chat about is comments, and we'll go into challenges, courses, conferences, and then completion. The notion of the comments component here is we're looking for your comments, your insights, your ideas. Maybe it might be interpretations, evocations, things that you would like to share with us that would be helpful in the creation of the challenges and the courses and conference. And what we've done is we've actually put together a research questionnaire that is on our website, the internationalmentoringcommunity.com /mentoring research book course. It's in the chat function here at the moment. It's also will be in the show more notes, and it will be in the blog where you would find this video as well. And we will be taking this out through the transmedia world and getting people to come back to us and answer this question. We've actually had 3 responses already, which is wonderful and great insights, because what it does is it sparks Doug and I to go, hang on a minute, let's take a little turn here and look at what's going over here, or look at what's going here, or just gets us to rethink, reimagine, rescript our understanding of mentoring, and we so appreciate. So again, International Mentoring Community, that's all one word, .com /mentoring dash. So let me say that again, internationalmentoringcommunity.com /mentoring research book course. And you can give us some of the comments that you have. And just to give you a sense of some of the questions that we're asking is, let me just give you 3. What are your biggest frustrations in becoming a mentor? So our work is really about helping those who are new mentors and or those who want to improve focus and strengthen their practice of mentoring, and they're still relatively new, but they have been doing some mentoring. That's sort of our focus audience, because we want to get them to understand the importance of mentoring as a way to which to enrich and deepen their practice. And it's also really great as a way to guide a new mentor to formulate a map, a framework, a process system of mentoring, and that's why we do it. So one of the obvious questions is, what are your biggest frustrations in becoming a mentor? That's one of them. What's your biggest fear about becoming a mentor from a personal perspective? And we ask that also from a professional perspective. And this is the one that I love, and I'm really encouraging people to jump in is if you could wave a magic wand and write a book or create a course that delivered everything you need, what are the three core elements you would include for that book, for that course? And I like that one because I'm hoping people sit back and go, you know what? I got a magic wand here. I think I would like to have that one and that one and that one. And that would be very helpful for us. Now, we've set out something around the challenging course that we think are some of the topics. But again, that's why we're asking you to comment, whether you could do it in the show more notes as well. But I'd certainly encourage you to go to the website, and or you can use the comment section on the website and ask to speak to Doug or I personally, and we'll certainly jump on a 30-minute call with you and go through the questions and just do it on, well, I guess it's face-to-face on Zoom, right? Not necessarily face-to-face with the person, because I know we're touching people all around the world. So with that, I think what we'll do, unless there's anything you want to add about the comments component, Doug, I think we'll move into the next one. What do you think?
Yeah, let's move into the next one.
Okay. So what we want to do next is take a look at this idea of challenges. And we have thought that maybe a 7-day challenge would work, 14-day. Some people do 21 days. Again, maybe you have some thoughts about that. You can put in the comments section or in the show more notes, or even go again to the contact page on the website. But I thought that what we would do is just share some of what we might cover if we did a 7-day. Now, again, you have to appreciate, being it's a 7-day challenge, this is sort of going across the surface. But what it is to awaken you to some important topics that pertain to mentoring. And so day one would obviously be something, well, what's the meaning of mentoring? What are some of the myths and metaphors that go along with it? And a lot of people don't know this, but Athena, the Greek goddess, was the first mentor. And there's a story that goes with that. And if you didn't know that, then day one of the 7-day challenge would give you insights into that. Day two might take a look at something like the noise and news of mentoring. There's a lot of noise that's influencing persons out there that are bringing up mental health. It's influencing the youth, and therefore mentoring in mental health areas, mentoring in youth areas, and it's happening in the workplace. So how can we bring mentoring into the workplace? And what we're doing with that one is we're helping people to position where you might use this mentoring that we've defined on day one, and knowing about the noise and the news. Now, I'll speak about the news part just a little bit later, because there's 2 S's on news, so I'll go over that in a second. The third one we'd like to bring out on day 3 is the notion of mentoring, moving in and moving on, which is to establish your authority. If you're going to be mentoring, is you want to wear the coat of, when you mentor. All right. And so we'll bring out something about coaching here, but it's really about, if you're going to do mentoring, then move into mentoring, learn what it's about so that you can move on. So those are the first 3 days. Is there anything that tickles your heart or your head, hands, and heart, Doug, you want to share about meaning of mentoring, noise and news, or the moving in and moving on before I go into the next ones?
The one that jumps out for me is the meaning of mentoring, because I think there's a lot of myths out there, a lot of misconceptions of what it is. And I think to be able to, number one, understand, and number two, be able to see the benefit of what a mentoring solution could actually do for you as a person and the organization that you may be working in, not only from, certainly from mentoring in its purest context, but now with us introducing mental health as an issue, that becomes just as important as well.
Yeah, so it's really about establishing that map of mentoring, right? Getting the initial understanding of what it's about, so that you can actually get into what we might call the models, into the methods, if you want to get a little bit more technical in the use of those words. We don't necessarily bring them out in that way, but if you're following the notion of, myths and metaphors, right, and models and methods, it's just using the M's there to keep moving it forward. Well, the fourth day, what we would be looking at is the educator within, educating without. And that is to establish the notion of the mastery, is because when you come to understand that mentoring is one of 12 educating approaches that you can learn and then apply, what it does is it gives you a sense of a broader picture of where mentoring sits, and also to think about, well, hang on a minute, maybe I could also learn this one and this one or this one to be able to assist me. But what it also does is, from a mentoring point of view, in the mental health area that Doug is talking about, it reminds you is that there's a line between mentoring and counseling. Counseling is another one, sort of the second of 12. And that there's a line there, and you do not cross when you're mentoring. You do not go into the world of counseling. Isn't that the truth, Doug?
And how ironic, I just had a call last couple of days, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was the last couple of days I belong to this group of individuals, and that was one thing in my conversation with us networking back and forth between myself and my colleague, was that he made it abundantly clear that, as a mentor, you need to be very careful, be very mindful of where that line in the sand or where that boundary is, and that as a mentor that you need to do whatever you need to do in order to not cross that line.
Great. And that's why we would chat about that one, certainly go deeper in the course aspect, and I'll go over the course here after we've done the challenge. The next three are the mentor, mannequin, model, and template. And this is where you're going to start gaining some understanding of the mastery. And what we're referring to here is a way in which to organize key terms and concepts that have practices associated with them, so that you can master your mentoring approach. And so we are pulling it together in a template, which is sort of like two-dimensional flatlander view, and that's how a lot of diagrams are shared. But what we bring the template actually into 3D, and if you wish, into 3+D, to give you a sense of that there's more to it than just sort of this flatlander view, and to actually spark your intrigue into, hey, hang on a minute, I can actually learn more using the model than just the template. And that's why we have what's called a mannequin model, and we share with you how you can use this to do your deep learning, but also as a tool technique that's in front of you when you are mentoring, if you need a reminder, until you really get mastering the approach of mentoring, and you sort of have created your own, or you're still using this model as you go forward. The sixth day would be the value of safety, and safety, that S is actually the second S of news. And news is referring to bringing in all of the insights from north, east, west, and south. That's what spells news, into the world of gaining information. And the S is to remind us about the value of safety, so that we think about mentoring from a safe systems perspective and a safer practices perspective. Often we forget is that mentoring and educating, these approaches that we're talking about, actually lean into the world of human science. Sometimes we call it adult education, sometimes it's human performance improvement. These are other terms for it, but there is this notion of a human science. There's an art and science to what it is that we do. And the day 7 is to go over the certification possibilities, about the certification as the mentoring way. Remember, new mentors, great way to get yourself organized. Those who are already mentoring in the early stages want to continue their learning, improve focus and strengthen, then the mentoring way using certification is a great way to do that. Because what we want to do is, if you're mentoring, you want to be able to answer these three questions all the time. So what else, now what? So if I'm mentoring, so what does that mean? What else do I have to think about? Now, what am I going to do to improve focus and strengthening my mentoring? So I just went over three more there, the mentor mannequin model, value of safety, and certification. Any thoughts you want to add there, Doug?
Well, the one thing that jumps out for me for all three is that by participating in this 7-day challenge and, focusing on all seven for that matter, but what that's going to do for me as a mentor is create that ability to be able to provide a deeper, richer mentoring experience.
Yeah, and the deeper, richer is certainly vocabulary that Doug and I use in IMC, because that's what we're attempting to do, is that there's a lot of people who are coming at this from a very surface level of mentoring. And unfortunately, it is doing some damage out there because they're applying mentoring into situations they don't really understand. It's unfortunate. They're crossing lines. And it really is unfortunate that it's out there, and there are people who are getting hurt. And Doug and I are taking to task ways in which to eliminate that from happening by bringing this deeper, richer, value, understanding approach to mentoring. So, great reminder there, Doug. Appreciate that. That takes us into, we've talked about comments and challenges. Take a look at courses. You can appreciate that the challenge is, by it sort of going over 7 days, 14 days, we'll see what happens here. It's sort of skirting over, it's going sort of skimming along the surface of it. The challenge over 3 months is to allow us each week to go in deeper into these topics, give you something more to think about, work through, apply over the course of the week. I'm not going to use the term homework, because I think it's more about you're applying it in your life work and sort of saying, okay, if I'm learning this, where else can I read? What else can I bring in to add to that topic? Remember, those topics being the meaning of mentoring, the myths, the metaphors, the models, the methods that are there for you, the noise and news of mentoring, moving in and moving on of mentoring, the educator educating without, from a mentoring approach, the actual aspect of that, tools and techniques like the mentor mannequin model, the value of safety, and certification. Because in the 3-month program, what you're actually doing is working on your certificate of achievement mentoring. And this one is about the certificate of understanding the concepts of mentoring that are part of the certificate of competence mentor. So if you do the certificate of competence mentor, which you can upgrade to if you wish, then you're actually in the applying of it, and you're showing the deeper evidence, the enriched evidence of the application. Whereas the certificate of achievement is you're going over the concepts, which you're learning to some degree in the course, but also where else are you getting? What is the evidence of the pathways you're using to understand the concepts? And there's 79 action outcomes, 79 concepts aligned with this certificate. And it is part of the course. Again, as I've mentioned, you can upgrade to the certificate of competence and do it so that you actually come out with a competence certificate, recognizing you have the concepts and the practices. So we go into that in greater depth when we get to the course. So that is something that's important distinction, obviously, with the course over the challenge. Challenges, we're going on just skimming over the surface. We're in the course, we're diving in, and we're actually working on one of the certificates. Anything you want to add there about the course world, Doug?
No, yes, what I guess for my perspective, any opportunity that, mentors get to continue their continuous learning, their professional development in the area of, using courses as an example, is that's a great way to prepare you for the journey that you would go on pursuing the certificate of competence mentor.
Right. So we have a phrase which is connect, consider, convert, conclude, complete. Let me share that again. Connect, consider, convert, conclude, complete. So what we're doing with this course is if we can connect with you so you can consider the different elements, action outcomes of mentoring, and then convert to the point of, you know what, I've learned them, then you can conclude that you're ready to complete certification. Then we have the certificate of achievement there for you, or upgrade to the certificate of competence and being a mentor. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and thanks for that update as well, Doug. Appreciate that. So that takes us into the world of conferences. Now, we know that there's different organizations around the world. There's one that's in the States. There's another one out of Europe. There is a group out of Australia, and they do day conferences, multi-day conferences, and do different kinds of workshops. So we're looking at getting involved with them. Doug and I haven't sort of landed the plane yet at any airport. We haven't even landed the plane. We're still up there flying around a little bit. Do we want to organize our own conference? So it's something to think about. But we did agree that there's at least three topics that we think are important that we need to do lots more exploration around. And we thought we would share them with you today because you could confirm through your comments if this is true, or add what other topics, and sort of, in a sense, vote, yeah, you guys, organize a conference. We'd love to attend. And if that's the case, in the comments section, or use the contact page on the website, then please let us know. So one of the topics is about jumping the experience queue. And I'm going to bring this one up. Another one is the mental health and mentoring from an adult youth perspective. I'm going to have Doug talk about that one. And then there's a shared one that Doug and I have come up with, which we think is gaining great importance. And it's sometimes just sort of passed by. And I think we want to bring it more to the surface. So let me start with the first one, the notion of jumping the experience queue. I've been paying attention through conversations and comments that are being made on different transmedia, social media channels. And there's a number of people who are putting forth is that, the notion of universities are slowly dwindling, are going to collapse into a smaller number, and we're going to go into the world of certifications offered by people who have mastery over certain elements. It's sort of like that of a master apprentice kind of notion, the guilds that we talk about in the UK. And but what they're saying is the following: you can get everything that you need if you go to Google or Google YouTube, type in a question, and you can find out everything you need about mentoring through the questions you put in. And I nod my head and go, okay. That's what I would call a foreground research or foreground conversations, but it doesn't get into the subtlety of the backgroundness of mentoring, because that comes when you're chatting with someone who's giving you their lived experience and framing up and giving you other kinds of stories that have great connection with you, and what you can then sort of taste and smell and reach out and see and sense I don't think it really gives it to you. Even if you're watching a video, and I appreciate Doug and I are putting out these videos once a month around topics we think are important, we would still encourage you to get together if you can personally, but we understand as well there's certain protocols we have to follow. But my point here is I wouldn't say categorically that if you went to YouTube, you went to Google search bars, you went to Google Scholar and looked at it from an academic point of view, that you would get all of the nuances about what is mentoring and the application of mentoring, its concepts and practices, if that's the only place you went to. Conversations with people, actually getting into mentoring, connections with people, there's a lot more background that you can sense. I'm just going to go back to that word. Doug, thoughts?
The one thing that I feel, based on what you had laid out, that's missing is the human experience. And I know that with the mentoring sessions that I have, that we always take something away from that. And I don't think that you would get that from a two-way trusted relationship perspective if you're interacting with Mr. Google.
Great point. Great point. So that brings up into the next topic, which is from a mental health mentoring. There's an adult world that seems to be there for mental health, and there's the youth part of it. You want to chat about what's happening out there from those two perspectives around mentoring, Doug?
Most definitely. So certainly from the adult perspective is that it seems as though mental health has kind of got lost in the whole shuffle, the COVID shuffle, as I call it. And what's happening is that mental health issues and how they impact people, organizations, families, all of those things has kind of been put on the shelf and isn't really getting the traction that it actually does, that it needs to have. And so part of what I'm seeing taking place is now there's starting to be a bit more of an awareness of what's going on. But what's also taking place is that the research that I'm seeing that's starting to take shape is one that is focused on the practical sense. So how do I, as a mentor, help somebody who is dealing with mental health challenges and that without crossing the boundary, the line in the sand, and getting myself pulled into what should normally be handled by a professional. So a counselor, a social worker, a psychologist, psychiatrist, all of those professional entities. So there's that part that's going. There's a lot of programs and a lot of research that is very much focused on youth and how mental health is an issue for them, and that can include such things as, the pressure that gets put on youth today to achieve high grades and stuff like that, or bullying that takes place in the school, and all of those things are all elements or pieces of mental health that mentoring, when you look at it, is a great solution. It's a great partner with those professional services to be able to help deal with that. Because what I'm also seeing that's taking place is that there's this gap. I may go to you as my psychiatrist today, but my next appointment isn't for 2 or 3 months down the road because there's not enough support people. And so the mentor can very well be that person.
And I think we could probably add to that, and it's not that we've forgotten it or anything, but just to emphasize it, and we might call that the letter C. So if A is for adult and B is for the youth perspective, letter C is for the workplace. You want to chat with that one because you're doing a fair bit of work mentoring in workplace, are you not?
I am, yes. And what's taking place now is that because of the work that I have been doing, I'm more in touch, more in tune with what some of the signs might very well be. So when I'm working with somebody, I can recognize that I need to ask some questions around their mental well-being. Help me help me understand why I'm getting a sense that this might be going on in your life. And in fact, when we go back and we talk about the value of safety, being able to create that safe place for a conversation to take place, what I found is that people, they just want to talk. They want to share their story, and their story can very well be, I've been diagnosed with 2 or 3 different mental health, issues, and I don't know where to turn to or who to go to next. Can you help?
Right. So that's certainly another topic. It has sort of like 3 branches to it. I could bring out a fourth one, which is the whole world of nature informed adventure therapy, which is guiding people in the use of the outer doors as an educator using techniques like mentoring to be able to help people because they could be adults, they could be youth, they could be persons from the workplace, and they're interacting with someone using the outer doors. So there's lots of areas that are being brought forward, but it's around this notion of the mental health and the mentoring. I think that's what Doug and I are attempting to bring out here. There is a third possibility that I mentioned earlier. It's one that I think gets sort of passed by, and I'm going to just sort of bring it out through the title. Let's see what happens here, okay? It's when the future and past meet nurturing the presence of mentoring, okay? Let me just go through that. There's the future and the past meet. In other words, there are things that people are being asked to think about from the future to bring it in, right? Someone might say, well, I need to create more wealth to be able to deal with all the issues that are going on. So maybe I need to create a side hustle. Oh, wow, that gives me 2 things I've got to work on. Or things are happening around, well, I've got to homeschool the kids. And that's a little bit more than I thought because, like I've got 5 kids. There's lots of things that are being put onto people from the future that are being brought into the present. But there's a lot of times we have some things from the past that we still bring with us. And some people might call that there's some baggage or we haven't let go of certain things and we keep keep finding themselves being triggered into our lives. And what we want to do is this future and past, if we're not dealing with them correctly, all right, can impact who you are in the present moment. And therefore, to get to the sense of presence, all right, and we're talking about the notion of the gratitude of presence so that you can be inspired, enthused, and have the certainty to move forward. Mentoring is one of the ways in which to do that because it allows you to get grounded, rooted in what you're doing in the moment. In other words, the present that you're in, balancing off these future things that are coming at you and the past things that are being reminded to you so that what you can do is frame up this presence. Now, it may have a mental health component to it. I get that. It may have a jumping the experience cue and element to it. But there's sometimes it's just that recognition that a conversation with a mentor can actually just be a conversation with someone who has some lived experience and you're just learning some insights. They go, hey, that's really great. I have some of those conversations that I have with people every once in a while. And there are times when I'm writing and I might say, hey, Doug, can I have a quick conversation with you? And I think of that a little bit as mentoring, okay? It's because I'm tapping into his lived experience. And it helps me to stay present. Another way I do it is I read books around things that I love that help me to go, okay, how can I become present by, well, these are the future things that are happening in some of the past. How can I reconcile those in my presence? And I'm going back. Sometimes people go, well, you sound a little bit doubling all over the place. It doesn't quite make sense. But when you experience it and you unpack it and understand it around this notion of future and past meeting in the present and how mentoring can help, it actually is a very freeing way to have these collaborative conversations without putting it in the box of mental health, without putting it into the box, I must learn something if I want to move forward in my job or whatever it is. It's just about being. And I just thought that I would bring that topic up. And we had a video that talked about, being fully human, being natural, being planetary, being Solaris, if you want to check that one out. So this is just about the presence of being. So you go, whew, that's a great conversation. Hadn't thought about it that way. And just coming at it from that perspective. Doug?
The power of lived experience.
And just being able to tap into that with someone, right? Isn't that true?
So true.
Yeah, that's why, again, I use. Sounds good. I interact with Doug sometimes when I'm just going, oh, I just need to talk about something. Can we, right? Because I'm writing the books and preparing things, and he does the same thing. So that's what we do. So it's great. So we've covered our comments, challenges, courses, and conferences. There was one last word that we wanted to bring in, completion. Again, it's a word, if you remember, that goes with the notion of connect, consider, convert, conclude, completion. And what we're getting at there is this notion of, if you're going to start down the path of mentoring, why don't you go to a point of completion and do certification? It's a great way to consolidate your learning, get recognition for what's going on. If you're opening up a practice of mentoring and you want a certificate from a group like the International Mentoring Community, then you have something to share. And ours is backed with lots and lots of rigor behind it, which you can learn more about as you get involved with the community. But we do lean into the environmental, occupational health and safety, right into the Criminal Code of Canada connection, which has certain applications around the world as a place to lean into for those who are coming at it from other countries. Also leaning into ISO standards, the International Standards Organization standards and regulations. So don't give up on the possibility that the completion is through the certification, and then you can recertify as you move along. So we just wanted to close it off, these 5 words, with that sense of the completion. And what's the importance of certification for you, Doug? Because you have been dealing with this for a good 10 years. You wanted to have it a deeper, richer approach to certification, which you've now helped to create in the international mentoring community. So any thoughts there?
I know for me, it's been the difference between being given the opportunity to engage with an organization and use mentoring as a means to help them out versus not being able to do that. So I've been interviewed 2 or 3 times now for various mentoring engagements, and the selling point, if you want to use that term, was the fact that I was certified. And when I explained the rigor behind the certification, it all of a sudden became a no-brainer. It was, when can you start?
Right. And we are actually looking at, we don't know how far along we'll get, but there are some people who are using the word paraprofessional linked to mentoring. And Duggar and I are going, interesting. What could we do from a paraprofessional? And if you know what our definition is personal and professional, there might be something there that we're going to take a look at and see if we can unpack this pathway of certification and paraprofessional. So we'll see how that goes. Again, if you have comments to that, please add them underneath, where you subscribe. You can add comments as you follow it. Also, if you're on Facebook, you can add comments into the Facebook page as well if you're following it there. And I think, Doug, that's getting us to close out. And I just want to remind everyone that Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, whether that's standard or daylight, you can find us at International Mentoring Community, the YouTube channel, and on the mental health and mentoring channel in Facebook. you can find us there as well. So that's a Wednesday, 10 a.m. Mountain for the Mentoring Lounge. And we would certainly enjoy having you drop in. You can use the chat function if you have questions for us. As we move through August, we will be updating you more about the challenges and courses and our thoughts about conferences and the certification. So you can stay attuned to that, but certainly look for the announcements about how you can get involved and encourage you to do something by getting involved and helping us. So as we always do and going towards close, because I'm the one who gets to do the introduction, Doug gets to do the closeout. And when I know he's closed out, then I will say take care and we will end the broadcast. So Doug, it's ended over to you.
Thank you. And for the benefit of our listeners today, the one thing that stood out for me and the significance or importance of it was the not the first day of the challenge, which talked about the meaning of mentoring. And I think that that's something that we all need to take a look at, because mentoring has a very deep-seated experience of being around for a long, long period of time. And I jokingly always say that there's only one thing that's older than me, and that's the history of mentoring. So with that, I encourage you to, do some exploring on your own and find out a little bit more about the history of mentoring and how it's been used over the years. And the fact that right now, as we speak, it is on a resurgence to gain popularity amongst organizations, amongst people, even in the family and in the community. There's a place for mentoring.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, take care.